The 2023 race calendar is set to be the biggest yet, but that isn't enough for F1 boss Stefano Domenicali. The team bosses have been bemoaning the ever-increasing number of races, but does F1 care? As the sport viewer base grows, the dollar signs in F1 management's eyes grow bigger. But is their next step going to push the team bosses too far? Let's find out. Reports have emerged about Colombia's growing chances of joining the F1 calendar, as Stefano Domenicali arrives in Colombian city Barranquilla to discuss a potential Caribbean Grand Prix. The 2023 F1 calendar has already been finalized, with the return of Qatar, the continuation of Spa, and the addition of Las Vegas among the most significant talking points for next year's schedule. While races keep getting added, the Chinese Grand Prix has been cancelled for a fourth year in a row, due to the country's strict COVID-19 policies that still prevents the hosting of large sporting events. The race won't be replaced, so the total races for 2023 is 23, more than there has ever been in an F1 season. Discussions are already underway for the 2024 calendar, and more races are expected to join. Stefano Domenicali has already spoken in detail about his plans for the F1 schedule, including his ambition for an equal distribution of races in Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Whilst nothing is definitive about Colombia's future in Formula 1, Spanish journalist Albert Fabrega shed light on the ongoing discussions for a Caribbean Grand Prix in Colombia just last week. According to Albert, the much-rumoured South African Grand Prix isn't gaining the momentum many people thought it would, so Formula 1 management are instead thinking of taking a race to Colombia. This development has been confirmed by the Colombian outlet El Heraldo. Barranquilla's mayor, Jaime Pumarejo, has spoken about the conversations taking place. "We're happy to have Stefano Domenicali here, taking into account that Barranquilla and Colombia must believe they can organize great events. This is the most international sporting event that exists, and we're looking for a way to make it viable." Before we talk about where the race may be held and why Christian Horner and Toto Wolff will dislike it so much, let me tell you about Established Titles, an incredible company that's preserving the natural woodlands of Scotland and helping with global reforestation. This amazing last-minute gift makes you the owner of 1 square foot of land in Edelston, Scotland, and Established Titles plants a tree with the global charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future. Saving the planet is obviously amazing, but this gift does something even better. There is an old Scottish tradition of calling landowners lairds, which is lord or lady to those of you who don't live in 15th century Scotland. By gifting someone land in Scotland, you give them the right to call themselves a lord or lady, and they get a certificate to prove it. You can add lord or lady to your credit card, plane tickets, or even your FIA super license. You do have one, don't you? The first 200 people who purchase a title pack using our link will get their plots pretty much directly next to mine. This isn't just an amazing last-minute gift. We could also start our own little Scottish kingdom. Established Titles is actually running a massive Black Friday sale right now. Plus, if you use the code F1Reverse, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/F1Reverse to get your gifts now and help support the channel. If you bought an Established Titles product with our code, let us know in the comments below so we can shout you out by your proper title. Barranquilla's mayor, Jaime Pumarejo, carried on to give some details on what he and Stefano Domenicali had discussed. Stefano has been learning the city and its diversity, seeing different options, but a specific circuit has not been selected. While there might not be a specific circuit in mind just yet, the talk was predominantly about a street circuit. Proposed circuits have been selected, Pumarejo added. 2 semi-urban routes have been identified and approved, a Plan A and a Plan B. In one of those routes, the river is the main protagonist, but both are within the metropolitan area. Under the terms of the Concord Agreement signed in 2020, no more than 25 races can take place within a season. The team bosses are already unhappy with the 23 races being run next year though, and the addition of any more will infuriate them. If they have such a big problem with the number of races being run, then they probably shouldn't have signed an agreement for 25 races in our opinion. Toto Wolff said in an interview earlier this year, "It is not sustainable for anyone to do 24 races. The drivers have to, but we start on Monday in the office and go through until the end of the week. We need to find a solution, and I think the race team will skip a few races every year in order to survive. There are a few individuals that can take over some of my tasks." Horner was another to voice his unhappiness, claiming the changes would take too much of a toll on the teams. When you talk about 24 weekends out of 52 in a year, it does feel too much, he told Sky Sports F1. I think they're working hard to make the weekend shorter and operationally more bearable for the teams and the travelling staff. It will need that combination, but it's right on the limit. We can sympathise with the teams. It is a large portion of the year to be away from family and friends, missing important events and leaving loved ones alone. If it was going to be such an issue for them, why sign the Concord Agreement in the first place though? For us fans, it is great. More races to watch, a longer season, less time for the off-season rumour mill to hit fantasy levels. Not all of the team bosses are as vocally against it as Toto and Christian though. The addition of a third US round comes as the schedule swells to a record 23 races. Haas boss Gunther Steiner says the sport's popularity has grown enough to sustain the events. I think obviously 24 races is a lot of races, but the demand is there. The fans want to see what we're doing, which is the biggest compliment they can give us, and we need to work hard to make them happy, he said. 3 races in America, I think it comes at the right time. The sport is already popular and it's getting even more so as we speak in America. Steiner is right. In Formula One's current era of prosperity, the sport needs to make the most of the fans' desire to be at races. A record-breaking 440,000 people attended the American Grand Prix in Austin a few weeks ago. You can't blame F1 management for wanting to ride that wave. Of course, the teams are going to have to find a way to deal with the workload. Senior staff for some of the F1 teams have revealed how staff rotation will be a critical part of planning how to tackle the 23-race calendar in 2023. Unsurprisingly, given that almost half the weekends of the year will host a Grand Prix somewhere in the world, the F1 teams are facing the prospect of staff burnout, meaning rotation of crews will be necessary throughout the season. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, Williams' chief engineer Dave Robson told the media. It's new ground for all of us, and there are pros and cons to rotating some of the key engineering positions. I obviously can't speak for the other teams, but I think we'll probably see different approaches. We have introduced some rotation, so you'll hear different voices talking to the drivers at different races. We've been doing that for the last season and a half in preparation for an extended calendar. While the majority of the mechanics and engineering crews can be somewhat interchangeable without affecting the performance on the circuit, Mercedes technical director Mike Elliott pointed out that the drivers are likely going to want their usual race engineers around them, with drivers forming symbiotic relationships with their engineers, such as Lewis Hamilton with Pete Bonington or Max Verstappen with Gianpiero Lambiase. Elliott said that's an extra hurdle for the teams to think about. I think with the technology we've got around us, it's not like the race engineers couldn't be involved. They'd just be involved from the factory, for instance. And then at least you're not doing the flights, etc. and the jet lag you get coming to places like this, he said. Not every team will have the luxury of rotating staff on race weekends though. It's alright for the larger teams. They can have staff members working on non-F1 projects, so their wages are not in the budget cap for half of the year, and then bring them into the team for the other half of the year, essentially doubling their staff numbers without having it affect their budget. Imagine it as a reserve team, ready to be called in when needed, but not being paid by the F1 team until they work in the team. Gunther Steiner has already said they can't do that though. The Haas organization just doesn't have the money to have a second group of race team members sitting in waiting, working on luxury carbon pedal bikes or surfboards or whatever other Ferrari merchandise people want to spend thousands of dollars on. The number of races in Formula One will pose new problems for the teams, but they agreed to this. They can't be that surprised that Formula One is adding races. By the sounds of things, Williams and Haas have already been preparing. I'm sure Mercedes and Red Bull will have been as well. What do you think of a Colombian Grand Prix race? And are you excited for the busiest F1 calendar ever? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.